Employers often have concerns about productivity and the additional costs of workplace adjustments. Without the necessary qualification and skills, access to the labor market becomes even more difficult. Good experiences have already been made in Europe and the USA, of course, and I'm sure experts know the supported employment approach, which means place first and then train, accompanied by job coaching.
Welcome to the Metautism podcast, where we're diving into the vibrant world of autism and championing inclusive education and employment. Join us as we explore innovative strategies, share inspiring stories, and analyze groundbreaking initiatives that celebrate differences and advocate for a future of equal opportunities. Let's get started. Hello. How are you? Welcome to another episode of Metautism podcast. I'm your host, Clara, and today I'm speaking with Professor Dr. Silvia Keller from HDBA Mannheim, or simply the University of Applied Labor Studies of the Federal Employment Agency in Germany. For the past 5 years, she's been teaching labor integration, and she specializes in workforce participation. Of course, this is not her first teaching experience, since she was a lecturer in employment promotion. And this is just some of her experiences, a small part of her experiences related to the labor market. For example, the projects she's a part of include 3 illustrates how people with cognitive disabilities transition from sheltered employment to the primary labor market in Europe. No wonder she got her PhD in social and economic sciences. And today we'll discuss what are some of the challenges and, of course, good practices and some case studies for integrating people on the autism spectrum and people with disabilities into the workforce. Silvia, it's so good to have you here, and welcome to the show.
Hello, Clara. Thank you. I'm very pleased being here with you.
Now, let's just begin with asking you, what are some of the biggest challenges when we are speaking about integration of people with disabilities and people on the autism spectrum into the labor market?
Integrating people with disabilities into the labor market is a multifaceted challenge that involves both societal and individual aspects. The main issues include 5 key areas: prejudice and discrimination, barriers in the work environment, education and qualification, legal and institutional headless, and the lack of support services.
Could you briefly explain those 5 key areas?
Let's start with prejudice and discrimination. Unfortunately, many prejudices against people with disabilities still exist. Employers often have concerns about productivity and the additional costs of workplace adjustments. These prejudices can lead to fewer opportunities for hiring and career development for people with disabilities. The second one, barriers in the work environment, means physical barriers such as inaccessible buildings or lack of technical aids can hinder the employment of people with disabilities. Equally important are organizational barriers such as inflexible working hours or insufficient support systems. The third one I've told you is educational qualifications. People with disabilities, we have to think about it, often have less access to education and vocational training. That means this is partly due to the lack of inclusive education systems and support services tailored to their needs. Without the necessary qualification and skills, access to the labor market becomes even more difficult. And the fourth, legal and institutional hurdles. Although many countries have laws to protect the rights of people with disabilities, there is often a lack of implementation and enforcement. Bureaucratic hurdles and a lack of knowledge about these laws among employers especially and employees both contribute to the difficulty. And the last and the fifth one is the lack of support services, I've told you, which means support services like job coaching, vocational rehabilitation, and tailored training programs are essential for successful integrations. These services are often lacking or underfunded, further hindering integration.
Can we go into maybe some of the best practices when we are speaking about transitioning from sheltered employment to the primary or mainstream labor market in Europe?
In Europe, there are many best practices for transitioning from sheltered employment to the mainstream labor market. Here I can give you some examples from Belgium, Cyprus, Germany, and Slovenia that showcase successful models and innovative approaches. And these examples come from us and our partners in the Erasmus project Include³. Let us start with Belgium, for example. In Belgium, there is the Agency of Independent Living in the German-speaking community of Belgium. And this agency offers an innovative training program directly in companies on the primary labor market. This program allows people with intellectual disabilities to train under real working conditions with contracts that last 1 year and can be extended. The program includes financial incentives and social benefits for trainees, making it attractive for both trainees and employers. Also very interesting and a good practice in Belgium is the next one. It's called long-term internship. And the Agency of Independent Living offers this long-term internship for people with high support needs. These internships serve as a trial periods in work situations outside sheltered workshop with the option to return to sheltered employment if necessary. If it doesn't work outside, then they can come back into sheltered working system. That's Belgium, 2 examples. Coming back and have a look to Cyprus. Cyprus, in my point of view, is very interesting as well. And I'm really keen on meeting our Cyprus partner in September. We are going to travel there. But let us come back to the best practice. There is a foundation called Christos Stylio Foundation. The foundation runs, for example, vocational training programs with young people, especially with young people, both within and outside sheltered workshops, continuously adapting the training to market needs. And outside the workshops, participants can find supported employment, for example, in service companies such as bookstores, cafes, or sports facilities. Looking to Germany, my country, two examples. The first thing is it's going to the county Sachsen, and it's called Practical Modules of Diaconie Sachsen. This modular system, allows people with intellectual disabilities to acquire recognized qualification in 11 professional fields at their own pace, which is very, very attractive, thinking of people who needs high support needs, And another thing is alternative vocational training, which the program offers direct access to vocational training on the primary labor market for students from special schools supported by job coaches. And to the model or the concept of job coaching, I'm coming back later on in the interview. So looking to Slovenia. Slovenia's approach includes individualized vocational rehabilitation programs that assess participants' abilities and help them find suitable jobs. An example is the Druga Violina restaurant, which provides jobs for people with disabilities and teaches them basic gastronomic skills. Well, and these models I've just introduced to you emphasize empowerment, participation, and close collaboration between various actors and institutions. And for those who are interested, our project website Include3 offers a comprehensive overview of our work.
What are the key points we should understand in regards to the project?
Include3 project aims to facilitate the transition of people with cognitive impairments from sheltered employment to the primary labor market in Europe. It identifies and disseminates examples of good practice and implements. Include3 develops guidelines and inclusive materials for people with cognitive impairments, inclusion experts and counselors. It also develops a supportive counseling method and a corresponding curriculum. The goal is to prepare people for specific labor market opportunities through vocational education and counseling, thereby creating sustainable and appropriate employment in regular job settings.
That's incredible. And you also developed some guidelines, for example, for decision makers in sheltered workshop, decision makers in vocational counseling, and of course, companies as part of the Include3 project. Could you please briefly introduce them?
These 3 guidelines or policy documents, let me say like this, are based on the key findings from Belgium, Cyprus, Germany, and Slovenia and summarize best practices to demonstrate practical implementation possibility and also address to the decision makers what do we have to change, what are the needs, what are the demands. And now I will follow and explain briefly the 3 policy documents. The first one is addresses for vocational education in sheltered workshops. And there is, for example, the demand of accessibility and universal design, which means ensuring the accessibility of all vocational training facilities and incorporating universal design into curriculum development. The next thing is called collaborative partnerships, promoting partnerships with disability organizations, employers, and community organizations needs to ensure holistic support and opportunities. The next one is also demand personalized support and adaptation, which means developing personalized training plans and providing individual support services. The next one is called social and emotional development. What does it mean? It means integrate social and emotional learning into the curriculum and providing counseling and support services. And the next theme is transition and job placement support. And we ask there for developing comprehensive transition programs and ongoing support for job placement, like I mentioned before, the so-called job coaching, for example. That's the first policy document. The next one for decision makers in companies, the guidance include 11 demands, and so I hope you can all follow me. The first one is called...
If not, we will link the website of the project below so everyone can also follow, because there is so many information. But please, Silvia, continue.
Yeah, okay, I will follow now. So let me start with the first demand. It's called external groups and placement. And this includes promoting external groups in companies, placing sheltered workshop employees in companies, and long-term jobs with fair wages and social benefits. The second one is pre-vocational programs. These should include preparing students with disabilities for the labor market, part-time employment with support and long-term support we ask for, and combining learning and practical work. The third one is called job coaching, as I mentioned before. Good experiences have already been made in Europe and the USA, of course, and I'm sure experts know the supported employment approach, which means place first and then train. accompanied by job coaching. And this means an intensive counseling and support concept for job acquisitions, job interview, onboarding, and sustainable support in the workplace. And therefore, the demand is for job coaching programs and individual support on a long run, which means not just a short period of time, like say 6 months or 1 year. We mean a long-term coaching program and a regular training on the working world, of course. The fourth one is called inclusive workplace. What do we mean? Creating inclusive workplace in various sectors and industries in the labor market, such as sales, warehouse, electronics, services, and so on. Promoting easy and less complex tasks using the job carving method. Can create a specific job in the company for the person with disabilities, for example, and the colleagues can think about it, which task can I give to the person with disability? Okay, of course, minimum wage and awareness arising, of course, and empowerment and participation to promote self-determination and independence of the people. The fifth theme is knowledge exchange and collaboration. This means sharing best practice from one company to another company. The next thing is creating platforms for exchange and evaluation and support and collaboration in networks. The next thing is accessibility and anti-discrimination, which means we need standards for accessible workplaces and reasonable accommodations and anti-discrimination measures. The seventh is supported employment. The eighth, cooperation between employers and educational institutions. Then comes inclusive hiring practices, which means promoting inclusive hiring and mentorship programs. And the next one is ongoing evaluation. Coming to the last one, Clara, which means the policy document for vocational counseling. This includes comprehensive vocational counseling. This means person-centered career assessment and individual support. The next one is promoting partnership, which means partnership with employers and educational institutions and involving community organizations. Coming up to transition support, which means developing transition programs and mentoring. The next one is accessibility. This means accessible vocational counseling services and workplace adjustments. The next one is awareness raising. The next one is tailored counseling. This means individual and culturally sensitive counseling plans. The next point is policy and legal framework, which means supporting policy development and legal protection. And then comes up to research and innovation, which means investing in research and using technological advances. For example, we have a European dilemma. There is no reliable standardized survey on the number of people with cognitive impairments, for example. No statistic on employment integration and unemployment figures. We do need here more investing in research. And the last thing is monitoring and evaluation, which means we need a model for effectiveness evaluation and a feedback collection in each individual case, thinking of the individual person with disabilities.
And now maybe it's best to conclude with advices or some best practices you would advise companies to be more inclusive.
I recommend that companies engage with the topic of inclusion, actually. Inclusion is a process and an attitude of companies that cannot be perfected overnight, of course. You see, a first step, for example, could be to consciously advertise job vacancies to people with disabilities. Get to know your applicants with disabilities, I would say. Telling the companies not every disability is visible. You will be surprised at how little some people's disabilities actually affect their everyday work. I would address to companies, be open and ask how you can support them. Be aware that people with disabilities often do not know who to contact as a company for necessary technical ads. Try out offering internships or external workplaces. Dear companies, you will be surprised, I'm sure, how people with disability really make a worth profit for your company. And actually, in May 2024, let me say this year, I completed my research project called, in German, Zukunft inklusiv, in English, Future Inclusive. It's a qualitative research approach. 24 company interviews were conducted and evaluated and reflected by 2 expert panels. And this research project explores vocational inclusion and derives recommendations, especially for advising companies. Interested parties are welcome, of course, to contact me.
That is wonderful conclusion. Thank you, Silvia, so much for joining me.
You're ever welcome. It was a pleasure for me, Clara, to be with you.
Absolutely. And as I said, we will leave everything in the show notes, in the description of this podcast episode. And now all that's left to do is, of course, say thank you to the Erasmus Plus program of European Union for funding this project. And all opinions are our own. Once again, thank you, Silvia, so much for joining me. And of course, thank you, dear listener, for listening or watching this podcast episode. Until the next time.
Bye. Thank you.